apologies for 9:01. I said 9 o'clock, and I guess that's what happens when you start something at 9 o'clock as opposed to starting something like 9 o'clock and 45 seconds. I guess I need to start things at like not at 8:59, 40 something. So welcome to Soccer's Morning Show. Soccer's down here. Bases dropped on a Friday. Obviously 5 minutes early because of part of the programming here on the weekend. And we've got to catch up with our friends over at Atlanta United 2. And we get our conference calls. We catch up with Coach and things like that. And so we'll catch up with Coach Cook coming up at 11 o'clock. And so that's why we got to be off by 11 o'clock. And the reminder there is that once again, on the network, a little before 6:30, 6:15, 6:20, somewhere in there, it will be on Sunday night, Atlanta United 2 in Fort Lauderdale at DRV PNK, taking on Inter Miami CF2. And it'll be interesting to catch up with Coach here coming up in a couple hours. And it'll be great to have the match on the network, however you access us. And once again, a little before 6:30 Sunday night after Atlanta United takes on Inter Miami, takes on the first teams. That'll be Saturday night. We're going to do Weekend Whiparound as we always do in hour number 2. And we'll catch up with everything going on in MLS, everything going on in your mind, everything going on Premier League. We got a lot of stuff to talk about in hour number 2, but Weekend Whiparound, patent pending trademark coming sooner or rather than later, probably, hopefully. And we've got relegation to talk about overseas. We're kind of getting the picture now as to what it's looking like in England, and as the sprint is happening in other countries. There are a lot of big name clubs that are still hanging around trying not to get relegated, but we do have some news out of the championship with one match remaining. We know who's going down to League One. One of them is Reading. Jessica Charman wrote about it yesterday on her social media feed. So we know who's going down. We don't know quite who the third is going up. That will come down to this weekend. We've got all of that to talk about, and everything on your mind this morning, as we always do. So once again, bottom of the hour. Traditionally, we have our friends from Beyond Goals Mentoring. I think it's Greg Garza's turn, but we'll see. We'll see who shows up, and we'll talk about what it's like to build a business in this current environment, and what it's like to kind of step out of your comfort zone. Something that they talk about a lot when it comes to improving as an athlete and as an individual. So we'll get into what it's like to step out of your comfort zone. We'll ask them about that. Hopefully coming up at 9:30. So. It is time, opening kickoff. Morning, everybody. Morning, Nix. Morning, Abby. And I know everybody's going to sit there and go, 9:05. Wait a minute. He's already started the show. Exactly. As always, traditionally, opening kickoff brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. And don't forget, once again, use the code SoccerDownHere15, and you get 15% off of your purchase. They, in turn, take 10% reinvested into the youth game. Very, very cool stuff from our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. Actually, Coco, a couple minutes early because we got to be off by 11 o'clock because I got conference calls catching up with Atlanta United 2. So, yeah, a little early, morning, Coco. But you haven't missed much. Just kind of missed the layout of the show and me doing it 5 minutes early. So, did you see, first and foremost, yesterday, how many days has it been? 33 years. They said 12,058 days between titles for Napoli yesterday. And I don't know if you guys have seen the pictures, if you've seen everything that has gone on associated with it, all of the partying going on, although I think one of the videos that was allegedly tied to the fireworks that have been going off in Napoli, probably haven't stopped, was tied to a Croatian celebration in 2020. So that the one ground level one. People are sitting there saying, nope, that was split in 2020. So we even have that going on. But after 12,000 plus days, Napoli won yesterday. Great scenes on the field. And, even when you don't have a home game and your stadium is full and everybody's ready to party, very, very cool stuff. No, I don't think anybody slept in Naples last night. No, sir. Nix, I think you are absolutely correct. Unless you had, do they have like Beats headphones for dogs? I'm just asking. But yesterday, as a part of all of this, you've got celebrations going on. I give CBS Sports a lot of credit, and our friends at Paramount Plus, Poppy Miller and the band, for getting interviews on the pitch after it was all over. Grabbing De Laurentiis when the match was over from the field, morning forecard. And I give them a lot of credit for their coverage of the league. 5 matches to spare. Great work by Napoli to win the title. Great work on the TV side, especially after the match. They really have killed it with Serie A coverage, Knicks. And in addition to, and we're tracking down Poppy Miller to see if we can grab her because she is the busiest woman in show business over there at Paramount right now. In addition to all of the stuff going on in Serie A with winning a title, I don't know if you saw this yesterday, but apparently Jose Mourinho, this is from our friends at Reuters, and I saw this and I'm like, yeah, I got to mark this because this is opening kickoff material. Jose Mourinho claims he wore a touchline wire to protect himself from a referee. Claimed he wore a wire on the touchline during the draw at Monza last Wednesday to, quote, protect myself from the match officials. No stranger to clashes with refs, torrented Daniele Cifi after the match, describing the 38-year-old official as, quote, the worst I've ever encountered. Quote, I'm not stupid, you know. I'm not stupid, you know. Today, I went to the game with a microphone. I recorded everything. From the moment I left the locker room to the moment I returned, I protected myself, end quote. Prompted by perhaps the 2-match ban he received after being sent off during Roma's 2 undefeated Cremonese late February. That was his 3rd red card of the year, issued after an altercation with the 4th. Wednesday's result leaves Roma 7th with 5 matches to play. And Mourinho, according to Reuters, was especially incensed that Cifi sent off Mehmet Çelik after showing him a 2nd yellow in added time. Quoting Mourinho again, he, meaning Cifi, is the worst referee I have met in my life. And you see, and the thing is that I'm reading this quote, and all I can do is hear it in Jose Mourinho voice. He is the worst. Technically, he's horrible. 0 empathy, 0 communication, 0 awareness. A 2nd yellow to a guy, meaning Çelik, who slips in the 96th minute. I stopped talking 20 to 30 minutes from the end because I knew he would give me a red card for anything. I didn't give him the opportunity. I decided, no, that's enough. So, Jose Mourinho has gone to the point, allegedly, possibly, probably, maybe, that he felt compelled to wear a wire. Wearing a wire. He wore a wire, allegedly. So, that is, yeah, and Coco, it is. It is Jose being Jose. And love seeing him sticking it to a ref. Knicks, respect. Love the 0 empathy line. But apparently now, Jose Mourinho wearing a wire. Oh, man. So Jose's wearing a wire because of a ref. And there was, we had the talk yesterday about Big Sam and how no one's better than he is, even though we did play the full quote. And you got Jose Mourinho, morning Tom, wearing a wire. Jose Mourinho's wearing a wire. Sam Allardyce thinks that he is just as good as Pep and everybody else. Yeah, and Coco, this probably wouldn't be a bad idea. Having Gonzalo Pineda to start wearing a wire around pro fourths. I mean, and I will say this. I mean, when I was on the pitch next to the bench for AmFam Cup 2 Electric Boogaloo, it gave me a really interesting insight into what coaches and staffs do on these all of these things. And so, it would be interesting to have them wired either for television or, in a situation like that. But no, I think it would be an interesting add-on, Morning Will. It would be an interesting add-on to hear conversations. Although, if you're in television, if you do have your parabolic microphones aimed in a certain direction, or your unidirectional microphones, as they seem to be now, they don't seem to be parabs with folks holding them on the sideline. You ought to be able to hear these things. And I think it's just having a properly placed microphone in one direction and seeing what you're staring at there. So it would be an interesting thing to hear coaches and their conversations. Emilio wants to see Jose here in 2 years. And, we need to go over – that reminds me. We need to we'll get into Atlanta United, too, obviously, more in hour number 2 as a part of Weekend Whiparound. Getting into the officials, I know that we needed to – that's the one thing we haven't talked about yet this week. We haven't talked about that or TV assignments. Armando Villarreal is your center ref. Jeremy Hansen, Justin Howard, Thomas Snyder are your 2 ARs and your 4th. Alejandro Mariscal is your VAR, and Fabio Tovar is your AVAR. So that's what you're staring at with Armando Villarreal. So referee stats. Let's get into the stats for Armando Villarreal, shall we? 7 matches this year. He's awarded 155 fouls. And that's not, that's not Chris Penso-like or anything like that. So it looks like by the dropping of all of these. Okay, so we said 155 for Armando Villarreal. 1, 2, 3, 4. Chris Penso's already given up 210 fouls. 5. So it looks like there are 6 other center refs, 6 or 7, that have called more fouls this year than Armando Villarreal. So he's kind of in the middle of the pack. When it comes to yellow cards, 29 in 7 matches. So it's about 4 when it comes to 4 per match. And he has not given a red this year. He has not given a red. And so he averages, what are we looking at here? Fouls, 7 into 155 is 2, 1-4 carry so 14. So 7 into 15 is 2. So you're looking at 22 fouls a match, 4 yellows, puts him somewhere in the middle of the pack. So that's what you're staring at with Armando Villarreal, about 20 fouls a match, 4 yellows. So it feels like maybe that's what you're staring at. I know a lot of you have been talking so far about what you're looking at lineup wise, considering that there will be no Franco Ibarra, there will be no Yorgi Giacomakis. So we'll see what it looks like up top, and we'll keep an eye on all of that. Like I said, we'll talk about it more in hour number 2. Tom mentioning Derek Etienne was doing some work on the right side this week. Maybe that means that Luis drifts inward. And that is when we get closer to the U20s, Knicks, that's when we'll know more about Caleb Wiley and the travel plans. And he is not the only one that has been allowed to go. Philadelphia Union mentioned that they were going to have their players go. Jim Curtin mentioned that he was going to be letting his players go to the U20s because it's a rare opportunity. You're representing your country. He hit all the right notes in the soundbite. So there will be those that are talented in the U20 in the U20 regard. They will be exiting. But when we get closer to the U20 tournament, we will know. Let's see, USMNT U20 tournament. Let's see what the date is. So you probably could sit there and go, maybe it's that's the 22. I don't need the 22 tournament. You sit there and you click on something and you're kind of going, all right, men's national team 2023 schedule and results. May the 20th is the match against Ecuador. So here's what you're looking at. U20 World Cup. USA and Ecuador in Argentina on the 23rd, on May the 20th of 2023. So you're probably looking May 16, 17. So obviously if that first match is with Ecuador, he's probably not going to be here for anything associated with Atlanta United after, say, the 15th or the 16th, heading down to Argentina. Game 2 in the group stage is with Fiji on the 23rd, so 5/23/23. And then the match against Slovakia is on the 26th. So the 20th, the 23rd, and the 26th. So those are your dates. Don't know when he would be leaving, but if he's going to be there from the beginning, probably the 16th or the 17th, somewhere in there, is when he would be departing for his international duty. So that's what that's what you're kind of staring at when it comes to Caleb Wiley and any kind of a possible departure. Mo and Curtin on the touchline getting after it. That'd be pretty epic. Can we talk about La Liga doing their best Catenaccio impression? Yeah. Knicks, Fire not letting their players go. Where's the hate for them like we've seen for Atlanta United? Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, Ezra has decided it appears that he's not going to let folks go. But but once again, if you're in, and this is something, Knicks, that we talk about a lot. If you don't have, and we mention agendas and things like that. So there currently is not any kind of a national conversation or a history of a national conversation about the Chicago Fire. I'm going to phrase it a certain way. The Chicago Fire have not been talked about to the levels of other teams. And if you're in a conversation and you're just kind of quietly going about your business, then folks may not necessarily consider it newsworthy as a part of the day-to-day in their interactions when it comes to whatever product they are attached to. If the Chicago Fire were more in the public consciousness or in the public conversation, it wouldn't necessarily be the, oh, by the way, Ezra Hendrickson and Chicago Fire are not letting them go. So I'm going to phrase it that way, Nix, that if you're not already being talked about because of levels of success, then you'll get sloughed off. It'll be very, very quick. It'll be just kind of like, oh yeah, and the Chicago Fire. If the Chicago Fire or any other club that has not been having any kind of success until recently or what have you are better than they have been in the past, think about lightning rods. Think about lightning rods and who are gone after in the national sense, who are talked about. Yeah, and that's and that's it, Rich. When you Rich Ransom and the Fire haven't been relevant since 2000, and that's the thing. It's like if you're in the public consciousness, if you're being talked about, then you'll get talked about either positively or negatively or what have you. If you're not in the public consciousness like Chicago will be just like, by the way. And by the way, Ezra Hendrickson, as the Chicago Fire are attempting to climb the standings and go from the current position that they're in the Eastern Conference as they try and struggle for a playoff spot. 1 point out of the playoffs right now. I mean, Chicago's 11th. Philadelphia went into MLS Cup last year. Atlanta United is Atlanta United. So any team that has a player in the public consciousness, any team that is attached to being a lightning rod for whatever reason, they're going to get mentioned first. Chicago is a point out of the playoffs in the current structure. They're 11th at 2-2-5. At 2-2-5, do you get readily talked about? And you sit there and it's like, does the Chicago Fire move the meter? I guess is probably the way to phrase it. Do the Fire move the meter in conversation? And Coco, that's true that they were relevant a few years ago when they subjected Slanina to a shooting gallery. That's their backline. You can thank the backline there. So you're staring at, once again, if you're 2-2-5, in today's day and age, is there any merit in me talking about you other than a sentence at the end of a paragraph? Probably not, unless you sit there and you're talking about somebody like Slanina. Rich, last time the Fire was relevant, the 18 months Mike McGee was on the team. So Rich is going into the Wayback Machine because with the Fire, you do have to kind of go way back and discuss their Cuauhtemoc Blanco. That's another one when he was there. But yeah, if you're 2-2-5 and you're 11th and you're a point out of the playoffs versus Philadelphia, who made it to the championship last year, versus Atlanta United, who is in the discussion because they always seem to be in the discussion. Absolutely. Yes. Knicks, you and everybody else attached to a team that is, ready to go in the USM&T U20 tournament with the names that were released in that U20 tournament. You are hoping that Slonina, and I know that Rich Ransom is talking about Brandon Craig, Joshua Winder. For those of you that don't have the chance to follow USL Championship, what Joshua Winder's been doing in Loose City, you've got, all of these guys, McGlynn, Obed Vargas, Owen Wolf, all of these names that are attached to the U20s that, you're looking at and you're going, go and do well, just don't get hurt. Go and do well, just don't get hurt. Please, 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 please. And you sit there and your hands are skyward and in a perfect world, if the U.S. makes a deep run into the U20s, it's May 20 through June 11 in Argentina. So May 20 through June 11. That's the dates that you have to kind of block out here when you're looking at the U20s. So yes, go kick ass, don't get hurt. Go kick ass and don't get hurt. That's what you're staring at. So you're looking at the U20. Rich, at this point, the U20 World Cup is one last shop window before the transfer window. Yeah, it is. Absolutely. And we know that a lot of folks are looking at a guy like Josh Winder at Loose City. So you've got all of that. Bam, remind us in hour number 2. Bam thinks LAFC might get their first loss this weekend. San Jose has a 100% win record at home with the ref. Wow. Okay. Let's see. All right. So it is Rubiel Vasquez. Okay. Nima Sagafi is the 4th. So San Jose and LA. So keep an eye on Rubiel Vasquez, everybody, and in his cards and his levels of success. LAFC's never beaten him in San Jose. So you got that. But like I said, we'll talk about all of the ref assignments. We will talk about the broadcast assignments. And we will talk about everything with Atlanta United. I know that you guys were talking about Derek Etienne possibly in the right, Luis in the middle, possibly Chol, trying to figure out what that might look like. And for the next 35 minutes or so, line up your thoughts and put them in the queue. And when it comes to this weekend, what you're staring at when it comes to Atlanta United on the road against Inter Miami once again, no Gregory, no Mota now, who is out 4 to 6 months with an LCL injury, lateral collateral, and I always will get that confused, but no Mota and no Gregory. So it might be the Leo Campagna show, and we might know where the defense for Atlanta United is going to be locked in, making sure that Leo Campagna doesn't get loose. But did you see, by the way, speaking of former both Inter Miami and Atlanta United folks, Breck Shea and Jeff Cameron are retiring officially, but they are going to appear in that $1 million 7-on-7 tournament. They're going to do the one final thing, and it's for a former Stoke players. I think they have they have their own team squared away, and so as a one last dance, it is going to be Dane Breckenshea and Jeff Cameron playing in that 7-on-7 tournament before they officially retire. They're officially retired from Major League Soccer, but they're going to play in that 7-on-7 tournament. And good riddance to Jeff Cameron and a peace out to Breck. But yeah, they're going to play in that 7-on-7 $1 million tournament before they officially hang it up. But apparently, Breck Shea and Jeff Cameron are going into business together with the next stage in their lives. They didn't really disclose what that was going to be. They're excited about it, whatever it is. but they are excited about it. But they've got to get through the TST first. And Nick says that Adam John is in that TST as well. It's going to be an interesting tournament to see what that looks like. And so we'll see all of the names and all the non-named folks that will be the surprise in all of this. It'll be really cool to see the TST just for the names. I don't know about the quality of the sport, but it will be interesting to see what happens with TST and see how it evolves. So we'll absolutely see. But so Nick's question, Neville go with 2 up top and start Joseph and Campagna. Don't know if he starts Joseph. We'll get into the Joseph numbers in just a bit. Storm Chaser Kevin is in. Midfield, I mean, Atlanta United's midfield. I mean, you don't have Ibarra coming into the weekend. I wouldn't say it's in shambles, but you don't have Franco Ibarra in there to make sure that the center of the pitch, doesn't get completely out of control. I mean, you're missing that sandpaper, so it will be interesting to see how it all. Thank you. But it'll be interesting to see what it looks like. Probably Sosa. I mean, like I said, it's some combination of Sosa, Hosechu, Sejdic, Almada. So, and their midfield, like I said, first off with Miami, you got to score. If you're Miami, you got to put the ball in the back of the net, and you have done it 8 times in 9 games. You've only given up 10, but you've only scored 8. There are, in the Eastern Conference, 3 teams that still have single-digit goals scored. Red Bulls in Montreal have 7. Miami has 8. 8. That's what you're staring at. And jumping in early. Wow, okay. So he's jumping in early. We're hitting all of our stoplights early this morning. Had to come on 5 minutes early because of the 11 o'clock press conference that we've got to go and attend. But someone else has jumped in early as well. I will take this minute and a half, and I will run with it because you're here with the Friday Free Kick, and that means that we bring in folks like this guy after that. Greg Garza hopping in. Greg, and he's sporting the gear. Look at that. He's sporting the Beyond Goals gear this morning. How are you, my friend?
Good. The only reason is because we have an interview right after this, so I have to be prepared. If not, you'd see me with a backwards hat and and a tank top on.
Nothing wrong with that. I mean, but it's really cool that Beyond Goals is continuing its growth and getting all of this attention, whether it's you or whether it's Michael, and being out there. It's really. Did you anticipate that you would be getting all of the attention that you're getting to ask about this next stage of your career when you and Michael started this?
For sure, I think didn't anticipate it. We definitely manifested it, and obviously, I think when you manifest something that you want. Not necessarily to become successful, but something that can continue to drive you with a forward force. And I believe that Mike and I have done a pretty good job in regards to continuously growing what Beyond Goals is, and also growing the community of what soccer brings to Atlanta and all around the states.
And when you guys started this, I want to go back a little bit, and I wanted to ask about all of the pre-work that went into starting this. I mean, how long a discussion was this with Michael and getting this off the ground? I mean, let's just take it in stages. When it came to starting this idea, how were those initial conversations about wanting to get Beyond Goals started?
Yeah, I think it was just Mike throwing around the idea of wanting to kind of give back to the game that gave so much to us, and then that's what sparked it, right? Sitting down and understanding what our pillars would be, what topics would be spoken about, how to custom tailor it to each and every individual and every player of what they're going through, and just understanding each stage, what the process would be like. Just spitballing ideas and brainstorming, and we still do that. We still do that at least once once or twice a week to where we hop on a call or we hop on a Zoom and share each other's screen and look at things that we've found that are interesting, or just go over future plans and this continuous growth, right? I would say Mike is probably a guy who has 1,500 ideas in the back of his brain because he's so darn intelligent. And sometimes you need a good balance within people to have on your team, to have someone that say, okay, you got these ideas, let's put this one together and let's run with it. And I guess that's where I come into play, where I'm the type of person, you give me this idea, you tell me we got to go with it. I'll stay committed. I'll stay committed to the cause until we finish it, and then focus on that next thing.
What's it like to have that kind of a yin and yang, where I think that harmonic balance is important? I mean, sometimes having folks that are like individuals when it comes to their thought is successful. Then there's that yin and the yang, the opposites attracting and being successful. What's it like having the opposites attracting, in this case, to make Beyond Goals as successful as it's been?
Yeah, I think neither Mike and I are type A personalities, right? We aren't people who are going to enforce something or demand something to be taken care of, or even with our interns that we have working with us, they always tell us, "Man, you guys are so open to new ideas. You guys are so open to, you know, time frames and getting things done." And I think that's what made us, probably as successful as we were on the field, because we were so open-minded. Do we have different traits and different characteristics in regards to maybe how we lead, or maybe how we carry ourselves, or a lot of the pillars that we go through and how we view things differently? But I think it's been one of those things to where even you start to realize that when you have really good friends in life, that those really really good friends, there's a difference about you guys, right? And you understand, you kind of strike that perfect balance, and making things work. So yeah, I always tell kids, in kindergarten, I always wanted to be the line leader, right? Not necessarily because I wanted to, you know, demand things from people or tell people what to do, but it was more so I just wanted to always lead by action and lead by example, and kind of be that person to where people looked at and said, "All right, this guy's gonna trot us through wherever we need to go, and we'll get there safely." So, whereas Mike, on the other hand, is the type of person who is able to talk to someone in so many different ways, and help them feel comfortable and help them feel confident and kind of get through whatever they're going through. And so I think we strike that balance well.
When Mike was on last week, and I guess I started paying attention to these kinds of things. And as much as we've had the two of you on to discuss mentoring and soccer and the sport and Land United and all these kinds of things, I started noticing that when I'm talking to Michael has some of your vocal response when we're going back and forth, because he'll go through an answer and he'll give a little bit of the Greg Garza. He'll go in end of a sentence and go, right, and I go, wait a second, that's from Greg. And so the reason I say that is I want to know how much of him is in you and how much of you is in him, do you think? Because when we talk about that yin and yang, how much of you have kind of worked your way into the other when it comes to how you guys are personality-wise in building Beyond Goals?
Most definitely. I think now I'm going to try and stop saying right at the end of every sentence. Uh, but I think it's more so of just the motivational speaking and speaking. I mean, I was at Soccer in the Streets yesterday, and spent time at Kensington and Clarkson all day yesterday, hanging out with those guys. And I think to get people involved and to get people engaged, I think those are like the words that you have to kind of have at the end of the sentence to make sure they're paying attention. But in regards to your question, there are so many things that we learn from each other.
Yeah.
Mike is an extremely intelligent and intellectual individual, and I love learning from him. I always tell people, and most people always ask me, what I always say, he's one of the best captains I had in my career, because I just viewed him as like everyone's dad. He just has And I mean, even JM7, right? We'll see this weekend. I'll get to travel and go see that game with the team. But it's everybody used to call Mike the old guy in the locker room, right? The oldest guy, just the way that he carried himself, his calm demeanor, just the way he kind of trotted along in the locker room or in the whole facility. And he just had that, obviously that banter behind it, but just that amount of respect. It's almost like when you say the word tata, when we speak about tata meaning grandfather in
Yeah.
Spanish, and Parky was viejo, right? He was viejo. He was the old dude, right? But everybody had this amount of respect for him that went through the whole facility. It wasn't only just the players; it was everyone that kind of worked in front office, and it wasn't just because he was the captain. It was more so just I think the personality and the intelligence, and everybody knew what went behind the type of person that he was.
When it comes to Michael, what was the first lesson? And I mean, and it could be a beyond goals lesson off the field post playing days, or it could be when he was viejo with you with Atlanta United. What was the first lesson you learned from Michael Parkhurst about either how you're supposed to conduct yourself as a professional, how you could apply things to real life outside of the sport of soccer? I guess, were there mentoring things that he was doing with you when you were teammates as a captain?
I wouldn't say necessarily with me because I think my experiences that I have had, I had already lived all over the world. I've already globetrotted. I already spoke so many languages. So I think we both viewed ourselves as those veteran guys,
Got it.
even though he's much older than me. But it was almost those veteran guys that have so much to give to these younger guys in the locker room.
Mhm.
And I think one of our frustrations, and this is being completely honest, and one of our frustrations whenever we were in Atlanta United was not having the ability to get that message through to a lot of the rookies, to a lot of the young guys. And there were very few guys that came from, whether it was college or came through the academy or whatever it may be. There are very few guys that took everything into their hands, right? And kind of held themselves accountable and said, I'm gonna watch these guys. These guys know what they're talking about. They know what they're doing. They're great professionals, and they've gotten this far not because they're great players, but because their personalities, their character, the respect that they have for everyone. Those were the guys that are now still doing big and better things, right? Whereas there were a lot of guys in that locker room to where I wish our messaging and I wish we could have done more. And I think sometimes Parky and I put that frustration on our shoulders. And now that's why we do what we do because we have the ability to now. I always tell parents we now have the ability to nip the bud as quickly as possible with these younger generation, these younger kids, to know that if that opportunity comes one day for them, they were able to learn from some guys that were able to make a pretty good career out of what they had in front of them.
How frustrating is it as a professional athlete when you know that you're trying to put a message across and try to help out a younger athlete that they don't get it or they don't want to get it? How frustrating is that, knowing that you can see promise in an individual, you know what they are capable of, but then they don't want to listen? How frustrating is that?
I would say whenever you are in a playing environment and whenever you are in I don't think people understand the amount of dog eat dog mentality it is within a professional environment, right? You look at I always compare, you know, corporate jobs and other things within life within soccer, but it's I think soccer is so unique. I think professional sports are so unique because um, it is by far, in my personal opinion, the biggest dog eat dog environment there is. But at the same time, you have to be best friends with those guys that it is a dog eat dog environment because you have to create camaraderie. You have to create unity. You have to create teamwork within trying to go towards one goal and one goal only. But at the same time, it's very rare that you see many guys pull each other out from under the bus within a professional sports environment. And I think whenever you're in that environment and you see so many kids, or you see so many young generation or younger kids not able to grasp how to balance all of that, you kind of just shake your head and disappointment, and but at the end of the day, you kind of have to worry about yourself, and you kind of have to, we always tell kids that even don't worry about others, don't think about others. If you can help, but at the end of the day, the most important person in the room is always going to be yourself within that environment. And now that I think that Mike and I have been able to hang up the boots, we're able to kind of view things a little differently. And, now not necessarily have that dog eat dog mentality, but really just give back to the game that, like I always say, that gave so much to us, and help these kids understand that, once they do get there, however far they're able to use soccer, that these are the things that helped us personally and individually, that ultimately led to collective success.
I want to get into dog eat dog here a little bit. And Jason Nix, one of our faithful Twitch pitch, Nix asks along those lines about dog eat dog. How hard was it for you in 18 when you were hurt for so long to keep your mind right for yourself and your teammates, knowing you might be helping someone supplant you on the field?
Most definitely. That's a great question, and I'll answer his first question as well. Yes, I got invited by
The TST.
Dempsey's team, DeMarcus Beasley's team, tons of different teams. But I think your next question of getting injured, that's the last thing I want to do at the TST tournament.
Yes.
So my answer was no. I would say in 2018, right? You root for so many guys in a collective standpoint, right? In a collective point of view to be successful. And you try and play your role the best way possible. So I always had it in my mind, even when I was injured, that I was always going to do just still 1% more than everybody else. That was just the mindset that I always had. Uh, Even when I was injured and going through PT and going through workouts, I would absolutely bury myself in the gym, bury myself into everything else that I could do, just still 1% more than everyone else, and coming back and hoping that was going to give me the edge to kind of help the coaches understand that this guy is invaluable. And I use that word a lot with my mentees. Being having the usage of the word invaluable within your vocabulary is so important. And it's funny because most kids, you ask them what invaluable means, and they say, well, why would I want to be invaluable? You know, I that means I have no value, right?
Wow.
And
Okay.
and so every single kid that I've ever spoken to, even young adults, right? They think the word invaluable means no value. I have no value. Why would I want to be invaluable on the team? And I always told them, I always had this mindset of being invaluable, extremely needed, always reliable, someone that they can go to, and that guy is irreplaceable. So even when I was injured, that's the mindset that I carried. That's the mindset that I kept. That's the mindset that I wanted to go through and get me through however many months I was injured, to where when I would come back, yes, I hope that guy was still able to do his job, that was in my position. But once I was back, that coach would look at me and say, that guy right there, he was most reliable when he was on, no matter how successful the team is currently. And that guy is ultimately irreplaceable. And I think that's kind of the mindset you have to have for yourself. Because if not, then you'll get caught under, the waves, and you won't be able to kind of pull yourself back up. And so, it's a fine line. It's a fine line between creating great camaraderie, but also ultimately looking out for yourself, because at the end of the day, you're the one that has to fight for that individual contract every year, and provide for your family the best way possible.
And being invaluable can come in a bunch of different ways. It can be through versatility. It can be through emotion. It can be through support. It can be through what you're hoping, obviously, would be choice D, all of those things. But by becoming more versatile and individual on the field and off, by being that attentive individual and having that camaraderie while at the same time challenging those who would be there in the same lane as you, trying to chase after the same thing. I mean, that invaluability, if I just created a new English word in the
I
English
like
language,
it.
I mean, it could come at you from a bunch of different forms. And how long does it take for your mentees to have that sink in, that being invaluable can come from not just one thing, but from a bunch of different things that can make a larger one thing?
When you were saying that whole phrase right there, that whole sentence, all of those sentences right there, one thing that stood out to me is that you said, you know, when you are able to push each other to the max, and you are able to have that competitiveness within a training ground, and even the guy that's the last name on the list of the roster is still able to outrun or beat the guy that is first on the list of the roster, that creates a better team. That creates a better environment. That creates the most competitive environments that I was in as a pro were the most successful ones. The environments, I can always give the example of FCC because it's so true. The environments of where so many people just started to give up and so many people just said, screw this, right? I'm not going to be a part of it. I don't want to push each other. I don't want to, even if I'm coming back from injury, my spot's not there anymore, right? If you have everyone working so hard and having that mindset of that invaluability of whatever, I love that word now. But if everybody thinks like that, the team grows so much. And um, I always use the example of Miles Robinson, and that in that year of 2018, Miles has done so well for himself since then. He has created, whether it's amazing contract for himself, amazing spot within our country. I'm so happy for him, and you root for guys like that. But he had that mindset throughout the whole entire year. Yeah, was he ticked off that he wasn't playing? Yeah, was he, probably super frustrated and disappointed not getting the opportunities? But he was a guy that would always, always, always compete every single day. And that made him ready and prepared for whatever opportunity that was thrown at him to be in with the, I guess you could say, the big dogs at the moment because he was not a big dog. And when he came in, it was as if he was part of the big dog community, right? And so it was cool to see players like that, and I think that's what the value of our team was in those years where guys like that were able to still have that invaluable meaning behind their name, even if they hadn't created their name yet. And Miles Robinson is a great example of that.
What were those training sessions like, challenging anyone around you and everyone around you every single day, knowing that there was a focus of chasing after a championship? How competitive were those 2018 practices?
Yeah, you create a winning mentality, right? It's two people in my whole entire career that I think could kind of have that mentality of Joseph Martinez and Clint Dempsey. Parky and I use them all the time because they both have this talent that they do not give a flying whoever, right? That is in front of them. They don't care. They don't care if it's their mom or dad or their brother or sister or you, their best friend. They are going to do whatever it takes to win in a small sided game and a rondo and a warm up session and whatever it is, they'll do whatever it takes to win. They want to be on the winning side always. Michael Bradley kind of has that as well. Um, and that itself, when you are in that type of environment, it pushes everybody else around you. Um, and I think that's such a good trait to have. In my opinion, it's a talent. right? I loved winning small-sided games, and I loved winning things in training, and I knew it made us better. But if I was on the losing team, I was still going home, and I was okay, right? I was going to drink my coffee, and I was going to go home to my. Whereas Joseph Martinez is the type of guy that would walk off and probably break a few knuckles punching the locker room wall, of how mad he was of losing the small sided game. But that you look at that, and that's a winning. That's a Is it sometimes a little too excessive? It can be, but it creates a winning mentality around everybody, that's around that person, right? Because that person wants to do anything and everything to win. So that creates a pretty cool environment to be around as well if you use it in the right way.
Is it more dog eat dog these days than it was even, say, 5 years ago when it comes to competitive level? I mean, we could be talking anything from U dash whatever to high school to college to pro. Is it more dog eat dog now, you think, than it was even a handful of years ago?
I I think it is because I wouldn't say so much maybe in the professional environment,
Yeah.
but I would say in the youth now, me being involved in youth soccer, and seeing my kids play and seeing how many young talented kids that are out there that are constantly and consistently changing clubs, each and every year at the age of 12 and 13 years old, it's mind-boggling sometimes because that's they're already, those kids and those parents are already thinking dog eat dog, right? They're already thinking that mentality to whatever is going to create the best opportunities for my son, we're going to do.
Yeah.
And I think that from my parents, I think I obviously lived a much different pathway and a much different life, but I always tell parents that Parky and I spoke about this the other day of just how our parents kind of just let us figure that out. They let us kind of create our own pathway and kind of let us get through whatever we needed to get through to create our own, right, our own journey. Whereas today, I think what I see within the younger age groups is that it's a whole family that's involved. It's a lot of people that are involved to kind of pursue everyone's dream, sometimes rather than just one person's. So it's yeah, I would say doggy dog is becoming more just because I think of the amount of people who now are in the soccer world and environment in the world that we live in today.
And you have folks who are trying to live vicariously through others, and it adds that pressure of the external, and just kind of it's almost like a cloud that hovers over you when someone is trying to live their life vicariously and kind of push it on a younger person, and it's pressure that they may not necessarily be able to handle at a very young point of their lives.
Most definitely. Yeah, it's sometimes hard to see those, right? And as much as you want to sometimes step in,
Yeah.
you kind of you don't want to take away from those parents' perspective on how they should also believe and think they need to raise their kids, right? They have a saying in Spanish and they have a saying in Portuguese that I'll just put it very lightly, that everybody's in their own corner, right?
Ah,
Everybody has their own. Everybody has their own something, and they have to deal with that, and they kind of have to smell. They have to smell their own way through wherever they need to go. So it's you always have to worry about your own self and kind of let everybody else figure it out. And I think that's the best way to go, within that realm.
because there are a lot of folks that are dealing with a lot of ish, and it's coming at them from a bunch of different directions these days. And sometimes we talk about hard lessons to learn, and sometimes the hard lessons come from what's going on inside the four walls that you're facing every day. And it's disappointing that sometimes the hardest lessons are the ones that you have to learn internally instead of the ones that you get to learn when you're doing something that you love to do.
Most definitely. It's always understanding and knowing, I think, your why.
Yeah.
is by far the most important lesson that I can try and give those families, and I can try and give those kids, because when you are born, and the goal and when you are a kid is not to go pro. The goal for you is to always understand why you enjoy the game and what brought you to the game. And I always tell kids, that are dealing with a lot of pressure and trying still yet to maybe find their why within the game. I always tell kids that, one of the main things I always thought about thought to myself right before the kickoff, even playing at a professional level, was I would just kind of visualize and imagine myself being that 5-year-old kid or that 6-year-old kid kicking the ball against my parents' red wall and breaking probably some windows and denting the garage. Then my mom gave me a call yesterday saying that the garage now gets to be the insurance claim. They had some bad hail last week, and so
Wow.
the insurance came, and they're going to now give them a new garage because they saw a lot of dents in the garage. Little do they know that garage doesn't open very well because those dents were not from hail. Those dents were from soccer balls. So, but I thought of myself in those moments because that's why I started playing. That's why I loved the game. That's why I played. Not necessarily because was it a dream to get to where I wanted to be? Of course, the dream is always there. Yeah, I want kids to dream big, but that's not why you play. That's not why you started playing in the first place. To just get there. You started playing because there's more to the game than just that.
Last thing before you go, and you mentioned it, you get to go and hang out with JM7 this weekend and go see what's going on with Inter Miami, who is offensively challenged, to say the very least. And Atlanta United's coming to town. No Yakamakis, no Ibarra. Third in the East. We know it's always tough to win on the road. Miami can't score. They're shorthanded. When you see Joseph going through the frustrations that he's going through, not being able to score in this version of Joseph after the injury now in Miami, what runs through your mind?
Yeah, it's. I think the world goes round in soccer, right? There are moments to where you are always on a high, and I always say that you have to take the most advantage out of those moments because you never know when those lows can happen. Um, and I give major kudos and I mean as Joseph's friend, he took advantage of being on the high, right? You look in terms of someone having individual success and setting themselves up for the future, and whether it be financially or whether it be however they need to within their family, and those are those moments wherever you are in the high that you have to go after, you have to take advantage of, and he did so because one of the biggest things I think that you can always tell fans and you can always tell people who really don't understand is that behind the curtains, right? It's every player will always have their moment. They will always have their moment where things will be really, really great. But more times than others, things are kind of mid and lower than they are really, really, really great. If there's a guy that is able to keep that level up here always, which is very rare to see, um, then it's a difficult one, right? We can look at Thiago Almada last year, right? Thiago Almada last year. I wonder what his creative numbers were of last year of goals and assists in comparison to this year. But nobody talks about that right now. They talk about how great he is this year and how great he's doing, and his confidence is super high, and he won a World Cup, and his market value is up here. But if you were to ask me that same question last year, I would have said, I don't know if he's the right DP. He's a very talented player, right? But I mean, what are his numbers and his statistics for a DP, right? So it's every player will always have their moment. Now it's up to Thiago Almada to say, how am I going to make the most of being at this high moment? Whereas you never know what tomorrow brings. So that was always excuse me, that was always one of the biggest pieces of advice that I think older players gave me when I first started was whenever you are on that high and whenever you're riding that high, take advantage of it the best way possible. Um, Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I'm right there with you. You got to take advantage of it with what you're seeing from Joseph. What kind of a game are you expecting?
Uh, I don't know. I think there's going to be about probably 500 people in the stadium because everybody's going to go watch Formula One on Sunday. But other than that, we'll see. Hopefully, it's an exciting one. I get to be there with the corporate sponsorships of All Atlanta United and kind of watch the game with them and get to spend the whole day with them. So I'm looking to a good time.
All right. What's the latest with Beyond Goals before you go?
Continuously growing, continuously trying to find ways to change the game, coming up with different pillars, coming up with different ways. As always, we always preach that anybody who would like to sponsor kids that come from lower income communities or underprivileged communities that we're always open to sponsorships and we have some hopefully some pretty cool news in the making here pretty soon.
And if you'd like to break the news, you know where you can always break it. So
We definitely will once it's out.
All right. Well, enjoy your morning coffee. I know that you've got to be on the hop for all of your other things. But Greg, as always, thanks for hanging out with us here at 9:30 on Friday morning for the Free Kick.
Thanks for having me, John. Take care. Have a good day, man.
Be good. Greg Garza, who's got a very busy day, and he's got to do like other media stuff, and he's got to go down to Miami, and he's got to do all these kinds of things. It's really cool that he and Michael Parkhurst come on a weekly basis and catch up with about what it's like to be a mentor and how important it is and all the different aspects of it. And getting to talk a little Atlanta United too, as well. There's nothing wrong with that. So very, very cool that we get to catch up with them on the Friday Free Kick every single week. All right. So now that we are at the top of the hour and we passed it, we've pole vaulted past the top of the hour. So that means that it's time to read a promo. And it means that we have to adjust all of our background music and hit a button. Here we go. For odor-free, clean, fresh air, one place you need to go. It's the Lemonize service. Proud sponsors of everything SDH. QR code over my left shoulder for those of you who are watching on Twitch. Right there. Deodorizing enclosed spaces like houses, apartments, and condos, they've created a customized solution that eliminizes all organic odors, including those like pets, cigarettes, and food. Realtors and property managers use the Lemonize service to eliminate bad odors to help them sell or rent their homes that much faster. It's a turnkey process, makes it easy to work with realtors and property managers, kind of the environment, offering a green way to get rid of odors without any kind of toxic residue whatsoever. And we like green ways. We like ways to help out the environment these days. Lemonize is different than Febreze or our other masking agents that we have either under the sink or above us in the cupboard, because when we reach under the sink or above us in the cupboard, take out that masking agent, you spray it in the air. There's a reason they call it a masking agent, because all you're doing is masking the odors. You're not attacking the problems like our friends at a Lemonize service do all the way down to the molecule. Pricing very, very easy. One of two ways, either by the cubic foot or parts per million, and come up with a price that's affordable for you, offering results in 24 hours or less. Then you go to the website. If you have any questions whatsoever to ask that we have not addressed here in the reading of this promo, what you do is you go to the website, lemonize.com, and this is where I grab my pen, because in addition to going to lemonize.com, after the .com, go /Atlanta so they know what part of the world that you are addressing them from so they can help you with your problems. Full homework assignment. ELIMINIZE.com /Atlanta, lemonize.com /Atlanta. Rotor-free, clean, fresh air, a Lemonize service, proud sponsors of everything SDH on a Friday. So there you go. Grades, as always, are welcome, as is this guy, Jared Smith. You are always welcome.
I'd give it like an 8 out of 10. I only heard the last few words, but it was solid.
There you go.
Good balance with the music. Wasn't overloading. You crossfaded it nicely.
Yeah, thank you. The only problem is that you can't really crossfade. You fade it down, and there's no real fading in the sense of fading. That it's like it's very abrupt at times. It's like you can't fade it the way that we used to when we were trying to go from one song to another as DJs sitting in a DJ booth going from turntable to turntable. The fading itself is a bit abrupt at times. Abby Gregg will be at the game on the weekend. He's not there yet. He has some beyond goal stuff that he has to attend to before leaving Atlanta, but he will be at the match on Saturday. So, okay. So, all right. So Shooter has come storming in this morning with news before we get into the weekend whip around. Patent pending, trademark coming sooner, hopefully rather than later. So let's see. Is it news on Barrero? I think it might be news on Barrero. So let's see. Dylan Barrero out for the year, ligament. All right. So that was a bad scene, seeing him going off on the stretcher. But Colombian national team, New England Rev forward Dylan Barrero, ligament injury, missing the remaining games of the season. So Dylan Barrero is out for the year with a torn ACL. So, we do have the rundown of MLS Next Pro activity. You can go on the network and listen to our review preview show for MLS Next Pro. The Hunt City match is at 7 o'clock Eastern time. So Will's going to be very, very busy with multiple devices working back and forth. But since it is after 10 o'clock on a Friday, that means that it is time for one thing and one thing only. It is time for the weekend whip around. Patent pending, trademark coming sooner or hopefully rather than later, where we go through all of the matches. We go through everything involving the matches in Major League Soccer. We give you juice boxes. We give you officials. And we lay everything out for you when it comes to all of the matches this upcoming weekend. Very, very busy weekend. And if there really isn't a match that Jarrett wants to talk about, we just go buzzing right past it.
I'll give you an answer and we'll skip it.
Yes, exactly. So May the 6th, we got a bunch of games at 7:30. Some intriguing ones at 7:30. We have 7 East Coast matches, or at least we have 7 matches in the Eastern window at 7:30. Charlotte and NYC on the free version of Apple TV. And this is where apparently Apple is kind of fading the free matches on the network. Apparently there are only 2 free Apple TV matches this weekend. Everything else is behind the window on Season Pass. Charlotte and NYC is one of those matches that Juice Boxers kind of put a blanket over it a little bit. Charlotte at home, plus 156 for Jess and Willie P to call this one at 7:39 on WFNZ. New York City FC is a plus 175. Your draw is a plus 231. Jarrett, do you wish to have me continue?
No.
Okay, so what are you thinking?
What were the numbers? Sorry.
Charlotte's
my ears just burned out with the team, so I hate the numbers.
Charlotte on the composite, courtesy of our friends at Odds Portals, a plus 156. Your draw is a plus 231. NYC is a plus 175.
That's New York City.
As we figured. Now we start with everything on MLS Season Pass. FC Cincinnati hosting DC United at TQL.
FC Cincinnati.
Yes. So here's
God bless you, Wayne Rooney. You seem to have figured out, like, hey, man, we're just going to go. We're going to play direct.
Yes.
It's not like full Sam. It's not like full Big Sam ball, but we're going to play direct to Christian Benteke. Damn good idea.
Yeah.
But FC and look, man, FC Cincinnati still gets a side eye for me. I know people are still side eyeing Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
I know they're sitting third in the East, but there's a lot of questions because the last week has been bad. Last 2 weeks have been bad for Atlanta.
Yeah.
Despite winning the game against Chicago, I still think if you asked people how that game went, they'll Berenstein Bears themselves into thinking they lost 3-0.
Yeah.
But you did win that game. It was just weird.
Yeah.
But the last week plus 2 weeks haven't been great. But the overall season has been pretty good. Cincinnati's in a similar boat for me in the sense that it's been fine, but they haven't kicked into gear yet. There's still time for that.
Yeah.
There's still plenty. We're a fifth of the way through the year. There's still plenty of time for Cincy to find that gear. They just haven't done it yet.
Yes. So, public service announcement. Abby is getting her haircut. We don't know how much, and she is now going to enjoy that in the beach. So she'll be missing the remainder of the show, but she'll catch it up on tape later. Also on the board at 7:30 kicks, we mentioned the Miami-Atlanta match. We'll talk about that one last. CF Montreal at Stade Saputo, a place where you have seen matches, hosting Orlando City. What do you think about this one?
I still don't trust Orlando City entirely. This is a weird year, man. Like, where there's a lot of teams I just don't trust week to week. It makes it fun. It makes it again, we've talked about this in the Discord. If you ever go to bet on an MLS game, it should automatically come up with a pop-up takeover window that is a get help number. You should not bet on this league. You should be solicited to a gambling service.
Are you sure
you should be sectioned into the William J. LaPetame gambling casino for the insane?
I didn't get a harumph out of you.
Harumph, you watch your ass.
Uh-huh. Right now, CF Montreal's a plus 120, but CF Montreal's favored at Stade Saputo.
Because it's in stock. Again, okay, let's do this number. Hold on 1 second. Distance. Let's Google this on my mechanical keyboard so you can all complain about the sound. Distance. This isn't even my loud keyboard. I don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
From Orlando to Montreal.
Uh-huh.
That is 1,400 miles.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Distance from London to, I don't know.
Moscow. Moscow.
That is 1,500 miles.
I was just throwing a city out there.
London to Moscow is only slightly further than Orlando to Montreal. And every English team in the world would be clutching a whole strand of pearls and Rose's necklace from the Titanic if they had to make that trip for Champions League.
Uh-huh.
And Orlando has to do it for a league game.
Yep.
Let's check the rest of Orlando's schedule. We're already down this rabbit hole. Why the hell not?
Juice boxes. Juice boxes, by the way. Orlando's a plus 125. Orlando City's a plus 208, and your draw is basically a plus 250.
Then they have to go to Charlotte. Then they host Columbus. Then they have to go to New York. Then they host Inter Miami. Then they got to come to Atlanta. Orlando's racking up those sky miles, man.
Oh, boy. Yeah. Oh, Will is making a request. Inter Miami and Vancouver.
Okay, let's do it. Distance from Miami to Vancouver. I misspelled Vancouver. I thought I misspelled Vancouver. I misspelled distance, which is somehow worse. That is 3,434 miles.
So basically, London to Moscow and back. The round trip of London to Moscow and back is
not
still
Vancouver to Miami.
It's not Vancouver to Miami.
Yeah.
So Bam says it's Wellington, New Zealand to Perth, Australia. That's where we are here with our mileages.
Australia, the land of the deceptively distant things.
Yes.
Because we think of Australia as it's this island continent. It's a big damn island.
Yes.
Also, there's a lot of it, like in Western Australia, that you ain't living in. Perth to
I remember the movie Road King with Stacy Keach and Jamie Lee Curtis. Very underrated movie.
Anyway, Perth from Wellington is 5,000 kilometers.
So 3,000 miles?
Give or take. I'm not sure of my freedom unit conversion.
Okay. So, but it's out there.
Yeah, it's 3,200 miles. You're damn close, John. Nice work. Very nicely done, sir.
Yes. I try to go by 0.6.
The point we're getting to here is a long-ass haul for Orlando to get up to Montreal just to have someone eat poutine in your face and tell you suck and to ring a bell. I see why Montreal's favored.
Yes.
The draw would not be a bad idea.
No. So we're staring at that one. Next on the board, New York Red Bull hosting Philadelphia Union. Rich Ransom, we need your input on this. Right now, juice boxes, Red Bull's a plus 122. Your draw and the Union are basically in the same ballpark, in and around plus 230 in the composite. So Union on the road at Red Bull's, basically a dog of 100 units, 100 juice boxes. That's what you're staring at when it comes to that particular matchup. And we'll hold on to that one because you know what? This guy's here.
Hola.
Yes.
We're complaining about distances.
Yes.
Complaining about distances? That's very vague, Jarrett.
Well, okay. So
Distances as in what? Like distances to shoot the ball on goal? Distances in the world that we live in? What?
Because
Okay.
Montreal is favored over Orlando this week in Montreal. We did the math. It is almost as long to go as the crow flies from Montreal.
Yeah.
Is this a cliffhanger?
Yeah, I guess so. What we figured it was the distance of Orlando to Montreal is a little. I think it's a little less than London to Moscow. So we know how folks overseas complain about flying from London to Moscow for international competitions, but you have a team in Major League Soccer who is in Central Florida that has to end up, and they have to go to Montreal and play this week. So there you go.
Yeah, what about when they go to Seattle? I mean,
I know. Yeah, we mentioned that one too. Like 3,000 miles.
Miami to Vancouver. That's a fun trip.
3,400 miles. We actually were asked about that one by Will. So 3,400 miles. So we were discussing the difficulty of winning on the road, especially where distance is applied.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's the major league in the world that is probably the hardest to win on the road because of that travel. I mean, that's part of it. It's just disruptive. I mean, I'm not like a world traveler or anything, but when we take a longer trip, I feel the effects of it. I couldn't imagine like playing these games and then having to be not just full of energy, not just being able to run 6 to 7 to 8 miles on the game, but to be able to do that and make the right decisions under pressure and be sharp with your first touch and all of those little things. It's tough. It's really difficult to go win on the road. And I mean, it's tough to win on the road anywhere, but it's tougher to win on the road in this league because of some of that. And then you start to get into altitude changes and climate changes and just, this league is getting better and better, and you can't just go out talent people on the road as easily as you used to be able to. So it's a fun league, but yeah, home teams have a huge advantage.
I think it's 2 out of 7 were road wins last year, 29%. So it'd be 2 out of every 7 road teams won last.
From what the numbers, I think it was through maybe last week or a couple weeks ago, it's even stronger home field advantage this year. And look, it's early, it could just be some of the matchups, but it's just tough. And that has to be factored in. You can't overreact to losses on the road, and teams have to find ways to grind out results on the road as well.
I know that you're multitasking this morning. How long do we have you?
I don't, if I stay awake, I've got time.
I was going to say bottom of the hour. Will that work?
I got a little bit longer than that, but yeah, not a whole lot.
Ooh, yay.
I am calling 2 more high school state championship games tonight up at Duluth High School. I've had an overtime game to close out the night every night this week. Had a ridiculous overtime game last night. I'm surprised my voice is functioning this morning after yelling like I did. It was a great goal from Dalton and a great win for them. But yeah, 2 games tonight, then fly down to Miami, Fort Lauderdale in the afternoon on Saturday, do that game, come back with the team, and then NPSL, Georgia Storm Sunday over in Carrollton.
Yeah, so the NPSL season kicks off, and we've got USLW coming up around the corner, too. They start a little bit this weekend, but they start more in earnest next weekend. But
WPSL starting soon, USL League 2, everything is happening right now.
So let's focus on, and by the way, for those of you that did not get to hear or see the call from Jason last night with Dalton and in Midtown, it is on the Twitters. So keep an eye on that. Very, very cool call.
Yeah, if you have a subscription to NFHS, it's worth it this time of year for sure anyway. And the game last night is worth a watch. Like, it was that good. Full credit to Midtown. I didn't think they were going to get through this far. Saw them in the round of 16. They were facing McIntosh in the next round. McIntosh had been number 1 all year long across all classifications. McIntosh beat Dalton earlier in the year in a game we had. And Midtown found a way through that, found a way through the semifinal, and they were toe-to-toe with Dalton all night. Started having some injuries late in that, started cramping up. I think fatigue set in 22 games in a short period of time. It's a lot, and it adds up for these players. But great game both ways. Great atmosphere. I mean, the line was down the road trying to get in right before kickoff. People were like hanging around the booth to listen to Jess and I yell about this game. It was super cool. People kept coming up during the breaks and talking about things that were going on. I mean, it was one of the coolest atmospheres that I've seen for a local game, and the game lived up to it. It was a great game, great goal to open it for Dalton. They end up winning 2-0, and we'll see if the 7As can match it tonight.
Yep, we certainly will. All right, so let's get into Atlanta and Inter Miami down at DRV P&K on Saturday night.
What are you calling this place?
Well, there's no vowel, so it's DRV P&K.
No.
Really, that's what the sponsor is.
It's not what the sponsor is. It's
Drive
Drive Pink Stadium. Don't be silly.
But they call it DRV P&K. That's what the letters that are there outside the stadium. There's no vowels.
They tell you how to pronounce it, John. Pronounce it properly. It is a good cause, the Drive Pink cause. It is very good. So show proper respect.
It is. It is a good cause. So
even if they're in Fort Lauderdale, show proper respect.
That is true. So when you look at...
Not my fault. They don't know what geography is.
No, they know where geography is. They just couldn't build the stadium in Miami yet.
That is true.
They are working on that, though.
Yes.
They are.
So, when you looked at practice this week, when you've had the chance to kind of keep an eye on things, when you haven't been doing high school, what are some of your takeaways from 30,000 feet heading into the match?
I mean, you've got to be better in the attacking half. And I thought we saw better in Nashville, but not quite good enough against a really good team at home in Nashville SC. And I feel like that game's closer than a 3-1 score line. It could have went really either way. But you've got to be sharper in those moments. And that's what this game, and when you look at the absences that Miami has in that midfield with no Gregory, no Jean Mota, that's a midfield that you should feel like you can attack and play through. It's kind of the inverse that we've seen from some matchups this season where you look at the opponent and you're like, okay, I think, Brooks Lennon can get around on the outside pretty well. Not going to be easy for him in this one. I think the fullbacks for Miami are very good. Franco Negri, a veteran from the Argentine League. DeAndre Yedlin, obviously, U.S. men's national team, World Cup player. You're not going to have a ton of joy out there. I think, Brooks Lennon can go against anybody in this league, in my opinion. But your soft spot in the Miami team is probably going to be in that midfield because they've had another injury in the midfield. And it's a huge challenge for Phil Neville. Talk about injuries. We talked about it all last year. It's very disruptive to the way a team wants to play. And when you lose both of your holding midfielders, it's extremely disruptive because that sets the tone for your team. So how Phil Neville solves that is going to go a long way into this game. Does he bring on a Victor Ulloa, who it doesn't seem like he really rates? He might have to here. Dixon Arroyo is young. I mean, is young to the team. He's new into this group. He's going to have to become a leader immediately. You've got to get somebody to support more because Arroyo and Kremaski had a great game in Columbus. He's not really going to sit back and defend, and you don't want him to. They're going to need somebody else there with the threat that Atlanta can present. And I feel like this is a game not just for Thiago Almada, because every game's for Thiago Almada. I think this is a game where if it's Mateus Hosatu, if it's Amar Sejdic, whoever the 8 is, has to really, really push in the attacking half and try to pin Miami in, because I think you can have a huge advantage in Atlanta's 8 and 10, Almada and either Hosatu or Sejdic. My guess is Hosatu, because I thought he played well in Nashville. Those two against Arroyo and I don't know who. Do they move McVeigh into the midfield? Do they play Ulloa? Do they do something else that's a little unexpected? Do they play 3 in the back as another way to try to cover for that? With that unknown, I think the 8 for Atlanta becomes really important in this one.
Jarrett, go for it.
Yeah, because I wanted to kind of get into, how do you attack when you don't have your midfield like that? Because against some teams, it feels like you might try and skip the midfield. And I feel like Atlanta's not really built for you to do that against them with Miles Robinson, who is having a hell of a prove-it year, and Juanjo Purata, who I know you talked about it this week, Jason, of how just how much he's changed the way this team deals with aerial balls on set pieces, but also with anyone's attempt to try and skip the midfield like that. And with the speed you have outside with Gutman and Lennon, assuming they don't get caught way up the field, that's like a counterattack. I'm thinking more like in possession for Miami. I do miss having a guy like Ibarra for a game like this to kind of break things up and trigger counters. But if Santi Sosa shows you what he did against Nashville, I mean, it feels like you should be in pretty good shape playing through that.
Yeah, look, I think Atlanta's going to dictate the play in this one because of these absences for Miami, and you just don't have easy solutions if you're Miami. Do you go 5-3-2, 3-5-2, get an extra center back in, be secure? That's really a move you'd more easily do on the road. But do you say, all right, Joseph Martinez, this is the game that everybody circled down. This is the emotional matchup. So you're going to start next to Campana. I don't think they would have done that if the injuries don't happen. Maybe that becomes more of an option. I mean, Leo Campana had a great match in Columbus. I think he's your guy as the number 9. But do you go 2 up top just because you don't know how to solve it? I don't think Miami's going to play direct. I don't see them doing that. Do I see them potentially not having possession in this game? Yeah, absolutely. But their strength will be out wide. And that's where if you're going to look to skip the midfield, it's not going to be down the middle looking for knockdowns. I think it's going to be a little bit more of build up through the flanks. It's Yedlin, it's Negri carrying the ball out of the back and trying to get there before finding Kremaski in and around the penalty area, the attacking third. They're going to have to play through the youngster Kremaski. You're going to have to rely on him in some of these situations, but you're not going to be able, unless, again, they go in a little bit of a surprising option in the midfield and maybe do try to get more on the ball. Uyo is a good ball-playing central midfielder, so I think they can build up through him. He's just not sharp right now. But I think you're going to have to find Kremaski in other ways, and I think it's probably going to be a build-up through the flanks. Now, when they do that, if they do that, Atlanta's got to use the touchline as an extra defender and trap up against the touchline and try to prevent them from bringing it inside. I think if you deny Kremaski, you really take a lot away from Miami in this game. And then they're playing for more set pieces and counters and things like that.
On the Atlanta attack side, no Giakoumakis this match, and I know that a lot of folks were trying to sit there and come up with combinations and permutations of how it was going to look up top. When you look at how things would go against the attack for Atlanta United, what are you kind of seeing? And what have you seen over the last handful of weeks with personnel, and what are you anticipating maybe in this one?
Well, I don't know why there'd be a lot of conversation about combinations here. I mean, you're going to play another number 9, and I think everything else stays the same. I don't think you're going to change the rest of it because of one absence. Yeah. So it's who plays up as a 9. Is it Chol? Is it Barry? I'd lean to Chol. I think he gives you a little more upside in that situation. He's going to make more runs in behind. He's got to do more of that. That's the biggest thing you miss when you don't have Giakoumakis, is you're not getting that movement, creating space for others. And I think you started to find some ways around that in Nashville a little bit. And this was when Barry came on. Also, other pieces started to move around too. And Nashville had a 2-0 lead and probably took their foot off the gas just a little bit. But you've got to get the movement that Giakoumakis creates. You've got to replicate that. To me, that's the number one thing that you miss when he's not in the team. Because when he makes those runs, it opens up space for Araujo to cut inside. It opens up space for Etienne to cut inside. It opens up the space for, whether they're cutting inside or they're staying out and the fullbacks are making the underlapping runs. It just creates space. And when you don't do that and the 9 drops, as I think Barry is prone to do, and it's just, look, it's his natural game. He's a good combination player. He wants the ball played into him. He wants to lay it off and then turn and go. That's good. And you can do that some. But I think this team is built best when that is option number 2, and option number 1 is to turn and go. Option number 1 for this team has to be play through Thiago Almada. You want Almada to have the space to be able to play. When the forward collapses down, you're bringing people into Almada's space on the ball where he can be dangerous. So you've got to have the forward as option 1, make runs. Option 2, and to mix it up sometimes, because you don't just do the same thing over and over again in a soccer match. Like, it's not robotic. It's not guys who are just listening to their coach, run, run, run. That's not how you play at this level. You have to be able to do different things. And the number 9 for Atlanta has to flip it, and to me, be more like Yorgos. Run, take the runs. No, you're not going to get service, but maybe half the time. Be selfless in that to create space for others. And that's what has to happen in this game, because it makes everybody else better, in my opinion. Araujo, Etienne have to be better in this game. They have to produce more in the final third. I think if they have more space to work in, they can. You know, you're not asking Almada to be World Cup winning Thiago Almada every single game, but yeah, this would be a game where it feels like the matchups really lend itself to he could have a nice day. I think he could have a lot of space to work in if the forward doesn't bring defenders into that space. And then Thiago's got to go find it elsewhere, and he will. And he's really good at that. And I think he did against Nashville. But you want him to find that space in a better part of the field. When he's got to drop deep to go find that space, it, again, can work. And Thiago's just a creative guy in a lot of different ways on the field. That's one of the biggest ones to me is he's creative in going to find space and make space. But you want that space to be made for him right there in the attack centrally and not have the 9 drop into the space.
Jarrett, what else is on your mind?
We saw it, and I know I know you're throwing stuff kind of against the wall at the end of the Nashville game. We've talked about how ascended to heaven it would have been if Juan Hoparata had scored as a 9 and how much it would have broken so many people's brains. The thing about that, though, was what Miguel Berry gave you out on the outside, not saying he's a winger outright, but when you talk about pulling guys out of shape, could it be where you see him drifting, not necessarily, if you can get him not drifting back into the space Almada's taking, but if you could get him, making those diagonal cuts, making those runs to the left or the right, as opposed to straight back or straight forward to try and open up the space as well? Is that something you could create?
Yeah, it's something you can build on. I thought Miguel looked really good out wide. It wasn't a traditional winger role, but it was something where it looked fresh. It looked good. And don't give anybody any ideas about Juan Hoparata starting as a 9 this game, please.
Oh, no,
I don't want anybody to think that's
it was fun for 10 minutes because you're chasing a goal.
It's what you do at the very end of a game, and it's something that, I've seen as far back in the game as I've been, where it's late in the game, we're out of options, big center back who's good in the air, go up top.
Yep.
That's what you do. It is the last roll of the dice.
And they were trying to get him the ball. God bless them.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, when you do it, then you got to try to feed it. I mean, you're not going to try to build up combination play with him up as the 9. You're going to try to put crosses in and find him. Yeah, I mean, that would be part of the plan, I would think, is to, when you're talking, if Barry gets to start, is saying, hey, you found a lot of success out wide. If it's not natural, if it's not easy for you to turn and just run straight down the field or make the diagonal runs in behind, if that doesn't feel right, because look, these guys play by feel a lot, and you're gonna work on things in training because you want to make the feel be natural. That's why you replicate things. That's why you do lots of patterns in training. You're trying to make the things that you want become natural and just whatever. I can't talk anymore.
Replicated.
Yeah, whatever. When you want it to happen more often. Let's change it up.
There you go.
So you want that to happen, and you repeat these things in training to get there. That would be something that you can repeat. That would be something that you can sit there and say with Miguel, hey, if turning and running to the left isn't something that feels right to you making that run, and we've worked on it and it's not happening, this worked really well, and here's the video to prove it, get to the right. If that's where it feels right for you when you turn and you can see everything the way you want and you're there, okay, make those runs to the right. Even if it's more of a square run, that's still going to create space by vacating that. And then it's how you fill the space. And I thought it was something that Gonzalo talked about this week. Positional play, and Gonzalo hasn't beaten everybody over the head with the idea of positional play. And it's not talked about a lot, honestly, in Atlanta when we talk about this team, but this is a very positional play kind of team. Positional play people will try to tell you wrong that it is about staying in a position. It is absolutely not. It is about exchanging positions. It is about making sure that positions are filled on the field, and it doesn't have to be the same person standing there. The days of drawing a circle on the field and saying, oh, you are the central midfielder, here's where you stand, those days are long gone. If you want to be a good team, they are anyway. It's not how the game works anymore. So when the forward makes a run, and let's say it's Barry, like Jarrett's talking about, let's say he goes more of the square run to the right. All right, so he leaves where you think the forward would be. He goes to the right. Well, that means that Lennon can't be in that same spot. Araujo can't be in that same spot. Does that mean that Barry goes outside and Araujo comes inside and makes a run through the middle? And then Miami defenders are like, wait a minute, which one do I go with? That's what you're trying to create. When your movement is short or it's not happening when others move, you don't get the exchange. You get crowded. What you want is the exchange. And what you want is something that we've seen actually quite a bit from Atlanta United this season. When someone goes, another player goes into that space or exploits the space that's created. Maybe not exactly right there, but you find that space that's been created. You want that to happen naturally. That's not something, I mean, you do, like I said, you work on patterns to try to get things to happen in a game, but you want these transitions to happen. And there's been multiple times, especially in buildup, that you've seen. I mean, Andrew Gutman tucking in as the third center back in buildup has been very natural for this team. Again, going back to, the old days of Atlanta United 7 years ago, it's not always going to be the six dropping between the center backs to build up. That was what you always did before. In 5, 6, 7 short years, the game is really evolving to where, hey, maybe sometimes that's going to be the left back or the right back tucking in. Maybe then sometimes the fullback's going to tuck into the midfield in front of the back line. As we saw with the twos against Philadelphia, you created a diamond against their two forwards who were pressing with your two center backs, a six, and the goalkeeper. And you played 4v2. And 4v2 is usually a really good way to play because you have two free people. So you create what happens in the game, and that's positional play. It's giving you a toolbox to say, okay, if this happens, you could do this, or you could do this, or you could do this. But when player number 7 makes this move, then player number 8 has to make a corresponding move. That's positional play. And I think if you can go back to Barry and say, make those runs to the right, that looks good. It feels good for you, it looks like. Make those runs off to the right. Araujo, Lennon, you guys have to play off of that. If he gets there first, Luis can make like a looping run inside. Luis could go further up the field. You could overload that side. You could play direct to that side if Barry goes there and look for the knockdown. He becomes a wide target forward. Lennon can overlap Barry and Araujo comes inside. Lennon could underlap and make a diagonal run through the middle. All these things then become open for that. When you're stagnant, it's harder to make those movements that open up space because there's nowhere to go.
I was going to ask about the twos, and it's probably for both you and Jarrett, considering that it's a Miami weekend for Atlanta United. Atlanta United on Saturday. We'll get into broadcast plans before you go. And then on Sunday night, a little before 6:30 here on the network, it's Inter Miami CF2 and Atlanta United 2. What's it been like to see 3 wins on the spin with the win over Philadelphia last weekend?
They're in a really good spot right now. And I think Steve Cook has got this group hitting on all cylinders at the moment. And you're building confidence. I mean, that's the biggest thing to me is Vicente Reyes gets the opportunity to go with the first team for a week, comes back, has a clean sheet. Noah Cobb playing consistently. I thought he was very good in the Open Cup match, and I thought he was even better against Philadelphia. Efrain Morales playing the best at center back that I've ever seen him play. Nick Firmino's on another planet right now. You're getting good performances across the board, and it's not just, he's beating people off the dribble, he's scoring goals. Firmino is sacrificing his body to help the team build up. He's dropping in deep. Eric Lopez was doing a lot of that as the number 9 before he was injured. He gets hurt. Karim Tamimi comes into the team. He does a lot of that, gets his first pro goal. it's been really cool to see this group coming together. And now they go on the road and they face a young team in Miami. I think these last 2 games are a little more of what we expected in MLS Next Pro, with teams that are similar in terms of development. We've seen some teams in this league, and it's a better league than I thought it was going to be. First off, number one, like I didn't think the level would be quite as high as it is. And that seems to be the consensus around the league this year, especially with the new teams coming in from USL Championship. More teams have went for those veteran guys than I thought they would, which can serve a purpose. I mean, Miami in a situation, if they'd went down that road and you're signing 24, 25-year-old guys to your second team, the idea would be that if you have injuries like this, they step right in. Which, okay, if you're going to use it purely as a reserve team, cool. If you're going to use it as an extension of your academy in terms of development, those aren't the kind of guys you're going to go get typically. You want a few, and I think Fuad Adeniyi has been a prime example of that here, where he provides that leadership. You've got guys like Tiente and Tomasi who've been around the block a little bit and can help solidify a group. But the idea of MLS Next Pro to me is those young guys developing, whether that's Luke Brennan, whether that's Noah Cobb, whether it's David Mejia coming off the bench. It's those guys developing into potential MLS starters. So, and I think Atlanta's doing a really good job of that. Excited to see the game on Sunday. John will have it for you on the SDH network. And just excited to see the growth of this group and the really good play that we're seeing from this group as well.
All right, so your day starts with the Walton possible daily double, right?
Yeah, so 5 o'clock, it is girls 7A state championship game, Walton and Denmark from Duluth High School. I think that'll be a good crowd. I think the boys game at 7:30 will also be a good crowd. The Walton folks will hang around. Lambert comes down from Forsyth County. 2 powerhouses on the boys' side that face off at 7:30, and that'll finish off the GHSA state championships for me. 6A finals are over at McEachern if you're on that side of town and you're looking for games to go see.
Nobody likes McEachern.
Wow. That's just, geez, Jarrett. They're not playing, Jarrett. It's just a place. It's a stadium where games are going to be held.
Lassiter and River Ridge and Roswell and Marist.
That doesn't help.
Roswell's made a huge run as a 4 seed out of their region. Marist has been number 1 in 6A on the girls' side all year long. We've seen River Ridge. Recently, I saw them in their semifinal, watched it on NFHS against Riverwood. They got through in that on penalties. That was an upset. All kinds of really good games tonight on both sides of the northern metro area for you to go see.
Broadcast plans for you and Mike.
We are on at 7, 5 Stripes Countdown, 92.9 The Game, the Odyssey app, the Atlanta United app, 7:39 kickoff, and then full-time report for maybe 20 minutes or so before we hop on a plane and come back.
All right, go save your voice. You got a long weekend ahead of you, so just be safe, have fun, and
a long week, and then there's more.
Yes, so it's a long week, and then there's more. So go save what's left of your voice.
Bye.
Bye. There goes Jason. And so that's your preview of a lot of stuff over the weekend. And so we'll pick back up with our weekend whip around. And New York and Philly. We were kind of sitting there wondering, okay, what's going to go down here? And Red Bulls are favored, Jared. What do you think?
Honestly, I'm thinking Philly in this one. I think it's a good chance for Philly to get back on the front foot. New York's still kind of confusing.
Dead last in the East, and they've only scored 7 goals in 10 matches.
Look, Philadelphia's out of Champions League. Philadelphia crashed the absolute hell out against LA with it wasn't even just the fact they lost. It's how they did it. It kind of felt like their brains were elsewhere. Yep. They don't have to worry about that now. All they have to worry about is the league. And I think this is where they have to do it, but this is where they can kind of springboard their way back into it.
Also, Joe Dickerson's in the middle for that one, by the way. So, and Jair Marufo is your VAR. So enjoy that one. Also at 7:30, what about your Quakes and LAFC at PayPal Park for an afternoon game local time? LAFC is a favorite at a plus buck.
So I don't know if Bam is still with us or if Bam has gone to sleep because it's late night in Australia.
Right.
Bam knows as well as anybody. When LAFC and San Jose get together, you throw out the record books. You throw out the records.
Yes.
Because there's some deal that San Jose and or
Bam's here. Bam is here.
There's some deal that San Jose and or LAFC made with the devil that this game is always stupid. And once a year, San Jose is going to take a scalp off LAFC. It will make 0 sense. You will be incredibly frustrated watching it if you're an LAFC fan. You will be incredibly confused. But for some reason, once a year, San Jose decides to bleed LAFC. I think that happens this weekend.
Okay. Rubio Vasquez is in the middle for that one with the numbers that we talked about a little earlier. Also at 7:30, it is Toronto and New England. It's at BMO. I don't know if that sways anybody's opinions or anything, but Toronto's actually favored at a plus 108. No Dylan Barrero, obviously. A shooter let us know about that this morning. Dylan Barrero out for the yield there at a plus 235. Your draw is at a plus 260. Why am I staring at that draw at a plus 260? Because it's the biggest number on the board.
Because it's the biggest number of the board, and we're both suckers.
Yeah. Bam says that with the game not being played at PayPal Park, it could be LAFC's saving grace. So
it also, okay, man, that also feels, and he might be right. It also feels like the kind of game where you're playing a team that has your number for weird damn reasons.
It's at Levi's, yeah.
And you just came off of an incredibly emotional win where you just stomped Philly into the ground after the 15th minute.
Yeah.
It kind of feels like a letdown game, and that's okay. You can live with that if you're a LAFC, I think. It's not the end of the world by any stretch of the imagination.
8:30s, there are 3 of them. FC Dallas and St. Louis City SC from Toyota. Houston Dynamo hosting RSL at Shell Energy. Nashville hosting Chicago at Geodis. Do any of those strike your fancy for any manner, way, shape, or form? Because in the juice boxes, as you stare at them, Dallas is on the minus side at 120. Houston's at a plus 108. And the draw and RSL are about the same, close to a plus 250. And Nashville's a big favorite at home at a minus 123. Chicago's north of plus 335.
Nothing really tripping my trigger personally. If it is for you, then
no,
more power to you. Always be degenning.
Yes. 10:30s. LAG hosts the Colorado Rapids. LAG is on the minus side at a minus 118. Timbers hosting Austin FC. Timbers are a plus 108. Vancouver at home.
Don't give me the Timbers on a plus number against Austin.
Yeah.
Anyone who gives me a plus number against Austin, I'm taking it. And I don't trust Austin as far as I can throw them.
No, and Vancouver hosting Minnesota United at a minus 115. The Loons are a plus 300 in that matchup at BC Place. So, I mean, you look at the Galaxy hosting Colorado. I don't know which Colorado team I'm going to get on a weekly basis. And, right now, Colorado has only scored 6 times in 10 matches. That's not a good average. And the team below them in the standings is LAG. They've played 9 times. They've only scored 7 goals all season, and they've given up 3 more. In 9 matches, they've given up 14 goals.
This is the kind of game where you take the over, though, where you're like, neither one of these teams can score. So the game's going to be 4-2.
Okay, so all right, so let's go down that road and look at LAG and the Rapids on a total. Plus 2.5 is a minus 133. Plus 3.5 is a plus 183. Then if you got even more degened up to plus 4.5, it would be plus 426. But I like that plus 3.5 number to plus 183.
Yeah, I do too. Fine, I'll take it.
Okay. Bam with a request, the over-unders for goals in Quakes and LAFC. So let's go ahead and check it for the not quite Cali Classico. 2.5 is a minus 132. 3.5 is a plus 186. Once again, 3.5 seems to be the sweet spot in these games this weekend. So 3.5 is a plus 186, and then it obviously goes north of that from there. But 3.5 is a plus 186 for San Jose and LAFC. Bam's like taking the 3.5.
Yeah, I'll take the 3.5 because again, like even if LAFC wins this game, the games are always weird between these two. Like LAFC and San Jose always play weird games. It's just what they do.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not personal. This isn't. Well, it might be personal for them. I keep wanting to kill LAFC. Unfortunately for them, what they have not realized is that LAFC cannot actually be killed, but neither can San Jose. This is kind of like. It's kind of like the end of the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie, where they just keep stabbing each other, even though they're both holding the cursed gold. They can't die.
Yes.
It's kind of where we're at.
Yep.
Neither one of them can be killed, but it won't stop them from trying.
So there you go with LAGs and totals, and Portland and Austin. Vancouver at a minus 115. I think that they take care of business against Minnesota while we're discussing Minnesota United. So that's that one to me seemed like it was a pretty easy one to kind of stare at here. Always, once again, remember looking at your options. Keep an eye on the Jason Wright Agency and their Twitter account. Jason Wright with a WAGEN on Twitter. Jason Wright with a W Agency on Facebook, and he will have your options for this week when it comes to the Fantasy League. If you haven't joined the Fantasy League, join the Fantasy League, and then that way you can come up with ways to beat me, because God knows I've been awful this year. And so that was, that's it. I've been pretty bad, but you can do a lot better than I can when it comes to the Fantasy League. So Jason Wright Agency, Jason Wright Agency on the Twitters, Jason Wright with a WAGEN on Facebook, sorry, and then Jason Wright with a WAGEN on Twitter. And you get all the info and intel that you need when it comes to joining the Fantasy League. So join the Fantasy League. Rich is a glutton for punishment on Saturday. He and some other Union supporters are taking the train up to RBA for the match. Wow. Okay. That is rather gluttony. To finish the weekend, and we got to catch up with Nico Moreno yesterday about it. Seattle, and this is going to be on Big Fox. So Sunday, probably, it says 4:30, so we're double checking. And yes, you get the super hyper mega pregame show for 6-2-2 Seattle hosting 0-7-3 Kansas City. It's on the free side of Apple TV, and it's on Big Fox. Oh, joy.
Why?
I think probably
this is like, it's like a worse version of when like NFL is like, you know what? We're going to put the Giants and the Cowboys on Sunday Night Football.
Mm-hmm.
Sir, they're both 4-6. Doesn't matter.
No, absolutely not. So, that's what you're staring at with that one. Juice boxes attached to this one. Seattle's a minus 147. Sporting's almost a plus 400. So that's what you're staring at with that one. If you really want to get into the matchup in and of itself and avoid the number and go to totals, 3.5 is a plus 240. 3.5 is a plus 240 in that one. Run to the plus 3.5. I mean, run.
I mean, you're asking a lot of Seattle. Just so clear.
I mean, Kansas City. Kansas City so far this season, they have not been good. They've only scored 3 goals in 10 matches. They've given up 15. That's not a good start, sir. So we'll see what happens. So your assignments of note. Rosendo Mendoza is with Charlotte and NYC. Guido Gonzalez Jr., FCC and DC United. We mentioned Armando Villarreal. Yeah, exactly, Rich. Flex scheduling. Exactly. Armando Villarreal's in the middle for Inter Miami and Atlanta United. Marcos de Oliveira is in the middle for CF Montreal and Orlando City. Joe Dickerson. See, now, Rich, you're going up to RBA to watch Red Bulls in Philadelphia, and Joe Dickerson is in the middle. Yeah, enjoy that one. We mentioned Rubio Vasquez. Fotis Bazakos is in the middle for Toronto and the Revs. Drew Fisher is in the middle for FC Dallas and St. Louis City SC. Lucas Zapala getting some reps in the middle for Houston and RSL. Mark Allerton for Nashville and Chicago Fire. Galaxy and Rapids. Remy Touchon is in the middle. Kevin Stotcher, VAR there. John Freeman, no relation, is doing Portland, hosting Austin. Philip Dujic is Whitecaps and Loons. And Victor Rivas is in the middle for Seattle and Sporting Kansas City. Carol Ann Chenard is going to be your VAR in that one. So those are your assignments of note when it comes to Major League Soccer on the weekend. Jarrett, before we go at the top of the hour, when you look at Atlanta United and Inter Miami, what are you anticipating in this one as we get ready for what a lot of Atlanta United fans hope is a get right game after what happened in Nashville last weekend?
A team that can really, this is a team you can push around in the midfield. If there was a game to build confidence for some of these guys in the midfield, like Mateus Setu, this is the game to do it. Santi Sosa being able to pick out his passes would be great. I have a lot of questions if we saw it with Nashville for about 15 minutes where they wanted to bring pressure on Atlanta.
Yeah.
And they didn't do it for long. Atlanta played through it and started finding spaces. I'm interested if Miami does that. Do they try and step to Atlanta and pressure them? Because it's going to be a discombobulated midfield. And Nick and I were talking about it during the Philly 2's game, is when you press like that and you get your steps wrong, you get your triggers wrong, you're late to the press, you leave acres of space. I don't know how much Miami will press. Yeah. I don't know how much they'll step to Atlanta, or they'll just let Atlanta have it and try and play on the counter.
Is Gary Neville?
I don't know how much of that's in Neville's DNA, to be honest.
Is Phil Neville in the hot seat?
I think he is. Last week helped him, but I still think he is a little bit.
And what will be interesting for all of us is to see what the lineups are. We talked about it with Jason. What the lineup is going to be for Inter Miami. Is it going to be two up top with Campagna and Joseph? Or what's it going to look like there? And with Atlanta United in the midfield. So, once again, you look at whomever is a part of that discussion, Sosa, Sadic, Josetu, Almada, and try to figure out what you think will best benefit you in that match down in Fort Lauderdale on the weekend. Once again, reminder, Jason told you, Tom Russo says it's a warming seat for Neville.
I think that is I think that's a good way to describe it, and I think it's kind of gone in a weird way. Tom, I'll take your opinion on it, man. We can do it all together if you want to. I don't care.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it was super hot.
Yeah.
Then they went and won against Columbus.
Yeah.
And so the seat's warm, but it's not like it's been warming. It was hot and it's cooled off a little bit, but it's still warm.
Yeah.
Because and some of this is, we would be remiss if we didn't qualify this with the injuries. Remember, Miami is still dealing with sanctions from MLS for, their DP Palooza.
Yes.
Where they wanted to have all of the DPs.
All the DPs.
Losing Gregory really hurts because, kind of like Kansas City, they don't have a ready-made replacement to do what he did.
Yeah.
Kansas City did not have ready-made replacements to step in and do the jobs that needed to be done. Some of that is on the front office for depth. Miami is a little different, though, because, they're still dealing with the fact that they're dealing with sanctions against them that can limit stuff like that. But Gregory missing is such a huge deal. I think there is a bit of a hot seat still for Neville. I think it was very hot. Even all that being said, just because they were just so kind of listless. I mean, they were almost bailed out by a couple late penalties, but they weren't ever really like, it never felt like, man, they lost that game, but that was a tough luck loss. They were like, the Dallas one felt like they lost 1-0. It could have been 4-0 Drake Callender was insane. It's been kind of like a weird thing. So, like, you do have to qualify Neville with the fact that he's dealt with injuries. Because we talked about it last year with Atlanta. Like, you dealt with injuries in key spots you couldn't deal with injuries. And every club has those key spots. They're not always the same, but everybody's going to deal with, we can't get the injuries in these particular places.
Yeah.
And that's what they've got. Now he's still on the hot seat, but it would be kind of a tough luck firing, I guess.
Yeah.
It would, I think it depends. If you fire him, I think it's going to be because they keep, like, it would be like, man, they've like lost 10 of their last 14 and only won one of them. That's the kind of stretch that I think can get you fired.
Yeah.
Even with the injuries, because you at the very least, you're just trying to grit it out.
Yep. And on that note, we got to go. We got to catch up with a coach because there's a game on the network this weekend, a little before 6:30 Sunday night here on the SDH Network. Inter Miami at CF2. Atlanta United 2 is here, and we're going to go get smart. You get NFHS Network with Jason, 7A games tonight, and they're at Duluth High if you want to go watch them. Jarrett and I, we're going to be hanging out most of the weekend doing a bunch of different things. So, Jarrett, send us home because we got to go.
Mocha Plaza, y'all, be safe this weekend, especially tonight. Have a good time. Please be safe.
What he said. We'll catch up with that because there is a bit of amateur hour that is attached. End of the show. It means we get to do this. We'll see you over the weekend. We'll see you on Monday.